Hello fun people, I'm Isaac Carlson, and in Soul, we are alluded to a fascinating reality that exists in the Pixar universe, that long before Joe Gardner avoided his death, there was someone else who disrupted the peace in the Soul world. Hundreds of years in the past, Terry, one of the coming togethers of all the quantized fields of the universe, realized that someone disrupted the number of souls that transitioned to the great beyond.
The count's off!
I seriously doubt that. The count hasn't been off in centuries.
But then the question becomes, who could have done this? At first I thought it would be an impossible task to identify someone from hundreds of years before Soul took place, since anyone from the past could have broken out of the path to the great beyond like Joe did. The truth was that Joe wasn't someone with extraordinary cosmic abilities or who was expertly aware of how the Soul realm worked, which means that if he could rip himself into the great before, then maybe anyone could have done that. Anyone could have decreased the number of souls who transitioned to the great beyond compared to what was expected, but I don't think anyone actually had done that before. If souls commonly were able to escape their journey to the great beyond, I don't think Terry and the Jerrys would have been so shocked when the count was off. Sure, they weren't surprised that Joe had been able to infiltrate their mentor program, but it didn't seem like they had ever expected someone to accomplish all that Joe had been able to. I'm sure Joe wasn't the only one who wanted to get out of his death or felt taken too soon, but if the Jerrys had never seen anything like what Joe had done, then all of those other souls must have been unable to escape their fate. Joe's experience must have been an anomaly, which would explain why the Jerrys were so impressed by his resolve.
I think I'm speaking for all the Jerrys when I say thank you. We're in the business of inspiration, Joe, but it's not often we find ourselves inspired.
So if Joe had been one of, if not the first soul to make the count of souls going into the great beyond go underneath what was expected, then I think that means that the last time the count was off, there could have been an extra soul who transitioned to the great beyond. I believe that at some point there had been an additional soul who passed on who was not supposed to have died in that time period. And of course, that led me to think of the one person who is widely believed to be a time traveler in the Pixar universe, a witch best known as Boo. You see, in the greater Pixar theory, Boo is believed to have obsessed over returning to Sully after she'd become close to him while living within the monster world. After learning of a creature from some other world than her own, she is believed to have then poured her life into exploring every avenue to return to her best friend, which led her to become the witch in Brave. With the witch's carving of the Pizza Planet truck, which wouldn't be invented for hundreds of years, an obsession with bears, which resembles Boo's adoration of Sully and teddy bears, a magical door that behaved in a similar way to the ones in Monstropolis, and a depiction of Sully carved in her workshop, it seems to all point to the fact that the witch is a magical, time-traveling, and older version of Boo. Now, there's some debate as to why Boo would go back to live in 10th century Scotland in her old age. The Super Carlin brothers believe that she may have gone back in time to attempt to prevent Sully from ever experiencing the final death that we were shown in Coco. But personally, I don't necessarily buy into that idea, since we know that the existence of someone remembering you throughout time doesn't keep you in the land of the dead. If anyone from throughout time could remember someone from the future and therefore stop them from experiencing the final death, then Hector's experience in the land of the dead would never have been threatened because little Coco from the past would have preserved his memory and his soul. Thus, Boo going back in time would have had no influence on Sully's existence in the afterlife. Now, others think that Boo might have become lost in time on her quest to return to Sully, and I think that brings up some interesting ideas, especially since she was likely to reunite with him before any of that took place. Before Boo went to travel throughout time, she went back to Monsters, Inc. And we got to acknowledge that because Mike put a lot of time into building Boo's door, and he can't be forgotten. Mike's a hardworking and good friend, and he deserves some recognition. Sure, maybe at some point Sully would have been forced to stop going to Boo, and that's when she started to learn magic. Or maybe Boo just learned about the technology of the doors so much that she had come to understand something that seemed to be pure magic. Or perhaps she had been sent to the past after accidentally going into a door within Monsters Inc. that sent her to medieval times. To me, I like this idea the most right now, since it combines the idea that Boo and Sully met along with the concept that she was attempting to return to him. Sure, I think it would be amazing to learn that Boo became an omnipotent being who could bend time and space to her will, but I don't necessarily think she would be able to be all-powerful. To me, the witch is strong, but she doesn't have full control over everything. By the way the knives she wielded turned against her, and the fact that Boo and her crow struggled to make money to survive during that time in history, I'm led to believe that she is in fact trapped in that time period. I think Boo went from a point in the future to a time in the past where she didn't belong. And that means that it's possible that Boo may have died in a time period that was not her own. From what we can tell, the Soul Realm moves through time in parallel with time on Earth, which means that if Boo remained a mortal being in the past, then when she would have passed on to the Great Beyond, she could have been the soul that disrupted Terry's work. Centuries before Joe Gardner decreased the number of souls Terry expected to go into the Great Beyond, on the day Boo died, maybe Terry got one extra time-traveling witch soul to account for on top of what she had foreseen. I believe Boo was the soul who made the count off. And honestly, I think this fits seamlessly into the greater Pixar theory. All of the connections and all the established lore just flow together in such a satisfying way. I was really excited when I had this eureka moment, especially at the beginning of 2021, while I was starting to write a completely different discussion on what the Great Beyond even is. But that will have to wait for another day. But fun people, what do you think? Did Boo pass on to the Great Beyond in the past? Also, make sure to subscribe and click the beautiful bell if you're new, and then click on another magical video in the description or on the screen. Finally, as always, thank you to my patrons, thanks for watching, and have a magical day.